Welcome back, All I Ever Wanted podcast. It's your boy Chris, got producer Mac behind the camera. Today we're going to go a slightly different route with our guest. We typically have a person on who will talk about what specific thing they do, and the reason we brought them on to highlight one specific point of your life that you should enrich, whether it's your finances, your health, your mental well-being, maybe people that dealt with trauma cycles and such. But our guest today kind of pulled all of it together, so you're going to get all of that in one podcast, and we're going to have fun here because I love to grill our guests, but this is a person who kind of, I don't want to say mimic is the wrong word, but definitely approaches life much the way that I do, which is I'm going to tackle everything. So without, divulging too much, I'm going to throw it over to the other Chris, and he's going to tell you, I guess, who he is, what he does, and why he's also named Chris.
So my name is Chris Liddle. I'm a personal trainer. I'm a contractor for social media and media production. And that is the most concise intro that I have. And I'm not sure where we want to start off, but I'll kind of let you kind of forge the path for what direction we take.
Forge the path.
Yeah.
Well, first I got to shout out to Central again, because this, so many of you have wow. It's Sunday. So many of you have contacted us and say you guys got the coolest places to shoot your podcasts. And to be completely honest, this isn't our place. The ownership of Central Social Hall, it's been super cool to give us this place. I love the look. I love the wood grain. I love the leather. Makes us look all high-end and special and stuff. But so I always got to shout out to them. They always take care of us. They feed us. We've been working with them since the beginning of all of our programs. So, again, shout out to Central. Yeah, let's get into this. So, we met basically through, I'm going to use online mentoring coaching, just so people can relate to what I'm talking about. It was one of those things where we were doing our programs through COVID, trying to help people see the world in a different light kind of thing, like understand that we all have to work together to get through the shit. Because let's be honest, that was just something most people didn't experience. So I think you had first reached out to us and you wanted to know how to get involved in what we were doing. How could you help people? And it was just an all-encompassing, how do I help? So I guess the first thing you could explain to people is they know my story. They know I never really grew up, but since I was even shorter and younger, I've been doing pretty much my own thing to get to the point where I am. Maybe break down the last, because you're a little younger than me, but maybe break down the last, say, is your education pertinent, would you say, like your post-secondary?
Well,
where would you like to start your journey to explain how you got here and everything you had to go through? Because I guarantee you, which camera am I looking at right here? Any of you that think that anybody had an easy ride to climb, to ascend, no. So maybe you can start with education, or where you think the most pertinent point of hitting the world and reality, because school doesn't teach you reality.
Mm-hmm. So the first thing I want to highlight is because we are located in Central, I actually have some really cool connections with Central and good friends with Vance, friends with Jesse. Most of the leadership group have ridden in a spin class when I used to teach spin a few years ago.
You did that too? Okay.
Yeah. And then I wanted to also just highlight how you and I connected, because the initial touch point was the Instagram stuff that you guys are doing to kind of brighten people's world when times were tough. Like me being a personal trainer, a lot of my income came from in-person training. Quite a bit more than what it does now, because I've had to diversify a lot. And it was just
so tough times taught you how to pivot.
Absolutely.
You didn't necessarily want to do it, but you found out, guess what? You don't always have the option to get exactly what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And you had the choice of, do I fold and cave and have a victim mentality, or do you pivot into what you're probably going to explain now?
Well, just digging in, and like the thing that you never know the impact that a person's gestures can have on a person's mentality. And like during that time, I was like, what am I going to do? Like I was certainly in the midst of hustling and stuff. But I won a giveaway from the Yeg Lifestyle Instagram page, and it supplied me with my Easter dinner, which I had on a Zoom call with my family. That was like, I was living by myself, and that was the only way I got to hang out with people was on Zoom. And got the Easter dinner from here, got the cash to pay like some utility bills, and like that stuck with me. That was like a flashbulb moment for me, and I just liked the energy that you guys are bringing. And so then I was like, I just want to stay connected with this. And so I just wanted to highlight that piece, because it's just such a, it's an abundance mindset, just like that there's room for everybody to kind of like move forward in life, and your attitude matters. But to kind of highlight my educational background, in high school, I was thinking I was going to go to film school. My targets were set on Vancouver Film School. I was thinking I was going to move. I didn't grow up inside of Edmonton. I grew up like 45 minutes south of Edmonton in a rural community. And I kind of like second guessed myself, and I was like, this isn't viable. So I moved to the city when I was about 19 years old, moved to like the north side by Rexall Place, lived there for about a year or so, worked at Sport Check while also taking general studies at Grant MacEwan. Through that, I got to explore a lot of different courses. One of them was media relations, and kind of like discovering like the different like lenses through CBC versus global, print versus video, and all that stuff. And it was courses like that were really valuable. Took some philosophy. Still didn't really know what I wanted
philosophy.
to do. Oh yeah, like
wow.
Everything. I was in a class in almost every building in MacEwan for at least a couple of years, just trying to figure it out. I thought maybe I'd transfer into more of like an artsy program to do film, but I was like, maybe I need to do something more practical. I thought maybe I'd go up the leadership ladder with Sport Check, and then I saw somebody who was a colleague of mine from another store. They hopped out, went into a new startup business. I knew nothing about it. This was in about 2012. And the business was essentially warehouse supply for like the stainless steel industry. And I did that for about just short of 5 years. And then I had what I call my quarter life crisis, where I realized, because I was about 25 at the time, and I realized that life is short.
Oh, you plan on living for a while then?
Oh yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, like you can't guarantee anything, but I figured that's a good spot to call it a quarter. So essentially, what had happened is like through realizing just how short life is, just through seeing like I had a role model of mine from high school. He's a teacher of mine, and he passed away in a car crash. And his daughter also died in the car crash, and it just kind of rattled me, because throughout my time in high school, it didn't matter what I set my mind to, he backed me up on it. And so to see that like somebody like that, like their time here is limited, kind of reminded me that my time here is limited. Like I'm not guaranteed 100 years, I'm not guaranteed 60 years. And it really made me reflect. And it was a combination of different stressors in life that kind of like pushed me to like look for something that I was more passionate about. Started with I went to like 100 spin classes in a row after a breakup, because I was like, I'm going to get in this environment, and I'm going to meet a girl here, and I'm going to get all fit. And I just kept pushing, and that evolved into training. Went and did my certifications, did some of the courses through the NATE personal training program. And then even with my education within the warehouse time, I did some metallurgy courses. So I have a very unique collection of like...
Yeah, that is not typecasting you at all. Like that's a whole bunch of education you got, whether it was from a book or experience or actual hands-on work. That's different. I don't think most people have that much... What would you call it? Experience is the wrong word. Just like knowledge of different things at 25. Like that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Most people have debt and a single degree.
Well, I mean, like the story of all...
Producer Mac nodded his head on that one. We've known each other for a while.
You'll see how like I've gone through different seasons of life with it all. So like I was building up to when I thought I was ready to make that change from like the old career to full-time fitness. I was like, okay, once I have something secured, I'm gonna make the leap. And because you're coming from like a salary job that has like your benefits, it has your stability. I just upgraded my car to the car I have today, so I had to do payments on it because it's just I wasn't making that much money. But it just kind of got to the point where it was like I wasn't happy in the atmosphere that I was in before. It's just like not feeling fulfilled, not feeling a sense of purpose. And I had applied to like 15 different gyms in the city, Some of them are out of business today. Like, I outlasted some of the places that turned me down, which is kind of fun. But yeah, I got turned away from a lot of different jobs just because I didn't have the practical experience in the gym as a trainer. They're like, well, we want somebody that's like a bit more experienced for this like entry level position.
But they want to pay you nothing. They
tough.
want top level trainers, and they want to give you minimum wage.
Yeah. But the cool thing is that is where Central kind of intertwines into this. So while
I actually just found out that he had worked at Central before. That kind of tied in nicely. I had no idea going into this, but I mean they now have their third location popping up right away. They're pretty much a pillar in the community now. They're all over.
Well, there's so much crossover with me and Central, so I just like to give credit where credit's due. And the connections that I've made with people like Vance had started with Instagram. And then at one point I called him out to come to my spin class because it's fun to call people out to go to a spin class. It's just like,
don't call me out. I'm not spinning anymore.
I don't spin
I
anymore.
don't spin.
I've evolved to doing jiu-jitsu. So I'll call you out for
we
that.
could do.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I started a friendship with Vance through just like mutual friends, mutual passions and stuff like that. And it ended up being that like I actually had a fairly confident feeling that if I took the leap and just settled for like a very entry level, very low pay job, that like I'd get the job and I could like leave the warehouse.
Yeah.
And so there's so much emotion in a decision like that I remember my former boss had said something that kind of like hurt my feelings, and then I was like, okay, that's it, I'm going to go and type out my resignation. So I lived like 15 minutes from like the workplace, and because I asked if I could like print it off at work, and they're like, not on our property. So drove home, typed out my resignation, came back, handed it to him, and I had made a commitment that I was going to be doing this. I think it was, so I'm 31 now. Back when I had handed this in, I had made a commitment I was going to make this leap before I was like probably 25, I think, just to lock it in, just because I was so scared of like making that change. So I handed him my resignation, hand was shaking. I was like thinking like this job allowed me to get into my mortgage. I got into my mortgage at like 20 years old or something like that.
Wow.
And there was so many things that it allowed me to be independent, reach my goals. I had traveled, gone to Hawaii like 3 times, Costa Rica once, not New York, that was earlier, but Montana a few times on road trips, and just like was living my best life kind of thing. And that career had allowed me to do it. So there's so much doubt as to if I could follow through with this leap, knowing the risks that were involved.
So it comes back again to, you were faced with a choice. Take the road that you knew that allowed you to live average or slightly above average, or something you wanted greater, and you were willing to risk it. So this wasn't someone told you how to do something. This wasn't handed to you. You had to go get it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, like I didn't know anybody else who had ever pulled something like this off. So basically, I bet on myself. I handed in the resignation.
Whoa, I love that. I bet on myself. You didn't go ask other people if if they thought you should do it, right? Or if you did, you probably didn't take their advice on it. Oh, a secure paycheck always feels the best.
There's a lot of people that were telling me that it was a dumb idea. And so I looked for the people who had done something similar, and I talked to them and I picked their brain. Like anybody who had switched careers to go into fitness, I was calling them up, borrowing their time. Some of my people helped me out.
You sat at the right tables. You see how this isn't scripted. He's ripped. I don't know most of his life. He's ripping off out of his brain. It always sounds like we're circling back to the same stuff, but every person that comes on that's part of that entrepreneurial life, that I want more out of my life, I need to be greater than average. Not because they want to be better than you. You're not in this equation. I need to be better than me. Doesn't it all sound the same no matter which guest we've had? Mm-hmm. I had to challenge myself. I had to step out of what I was comfortable with because I wanted greater. And almost everyone says, I went and sat at the right tables.
Yeah.
Because you can't go back to your complacent tables and ask them about a new idea. Exactly. Continue. I love how it always comes back to this. Doesn't matter what step someone's in their climb, it starts with that.
Totally.
Right there. That is everything you ever need to hear about anyone who's successful, whether they've failed, quote unquote, something along the way. I gathered the knowledge, I sat at the right table, and I made a choice for me. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I love that.
So I was so certain that everything was going to kind of work out to plan. I was like, okay, I've got like some full-time employment. I'm going to be okay. I might make a little bit less for the start, but it's going to be fine. I got to the last day of my employment at the old place. They had given me a check to pay me out to have me leave a little bit earlier, which was totally fine. Driving in the car to get home, I pulled up to my parking stall at my building, and I get a call from the gym that I had applied to. And they said that they weren't going to be moving forward with having me at their facility, and that if I wanted to, I could shadow somebody for free. And wow. It just shook me to my core. Like that, I've gone through plenty of stress, but I think that's like the top most stressful time in my career, just because it was so, you didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know if you actually made a mistake or not, because that's like the first big risk that you take. And so from that point forward, I knew that I just, come hell or high water, I had to start getting some like experience, like teaching like fitness and stuff, because I had to have somebody like give me some credit. And like at the time I was actively like teaching spin classes and stuff, so I was already in the industry like in a practical way.
Yeah.
I was involved with the local fitness magazine as like an account manager, so I was at all the fitness events. A lot of people in the local industry knew who I was.
Adding value to yourself behind the scenes, not when you were asked to do it.
Yeah.
You personally took the initiative. You know, we just had this discussion with Sydney when she was on. The position she wanted, she didn't wait to be offered the job. She had learned along the way how to be a project manager. So she knew all the steps, didn't have to be trained, and then just walked on when it was convenient. So you're saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. Along the way, you're like, I'm going to do more. I'm going to acquire more. I'm going to make myself the most valuable version of myself, so I have value to other people.
It's true. And I mean, the thought process that I went through, because it got to the point where like, I just want to shout out Vance, because he's talked to me through a lot of times that were very stressful where I doubted myself, and he's got a lot of life experience himself that's like really valuable. And I was telling him about my situation, like this big move that I had done, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be starting to look for work. And through that process, at the same time as I arranged actually like a brunch burn, which was basically brunch and a boot camp here at Central. Okay. At the same time as that, I actually started here as a porter. And like that was so out of my comfort zone. But first I'll highlight the brunch burn, because essentially what happened is I pitched the idea to Vance and Jesse, and I was like, is there any way that I can do like a workout at the bar? Because then I can get experience so I can apply to a gym.
I've never even heard of that.
They did it a few times, and like if we thought of doing another one like as part of like the greater like our group kind of thing, mm-hmm. I'd be totally down to help with that.
I'm always up for something new. I've never even heard of something like that, but to hear that Jesse and Vance were both into it, they love doing stuff in the community. Like this is, and again, you're always going to find when you try and do great things or greater than average things, you're always going to be brought back to the same tables. Both Vance and Jesse have everything that we've wanted to do. Like they were the first business to come on board when we started the lifestyle group. They're like, how do we get involved? Like, we didn't even ask people to be involved, but Jesse contacted me and he's like, how do we get part? Like you said, we were just trying to cheer people up, make people think a different way. And within a couple of days, you already had an organization well known in the community reaching out and be like, how do we get involved? We want to change people's minds. We want to make sure that people know there's people looking out for everybody else in the city. So notice how it always comes back to the same people, the same groups, the same mindsets.
Yeah.
So if that, I still don't think I understand what you're talking about with this brunch burn, but I would love to do that, because hey, more material and content for us to post, and maybe it's something you've never heard of either. That already sounds awesome.
So I'll explain kind of how it went down. I had talked about another colleague in the industry that I had asked about how he made the leap, because he started in construction and went into training. I think it was, pretty sure it was construction, something along that line. But in any case, I had asked him how he did it, and then I did my own version. It wasn't the same as how he did it. I took on a little bit more risk in my own instance, but he became kind of like my guide, the person who I'd ask if I came across a roadblock. I'd also connected with a few other people through all the Yeg Fitness stuff that I was doing, because I organized or helped facilitate the promotion of an industry night where we brought together trainers from around the city. I did a cool like little social media promo thing where I got some of like the fitness influencers, trainers, really well-known, notable people. I did this What's Up video, so like from like Scary Movie, I got a whole bunch of like Edmonton people to like pick up the phone and do What's Up. So networking was a strong suit, and so I was going to start to leverage that, just leveraging the people that I connected with.
The quality people that you had grown into their community.
Yeah.
It's always going to help you.
And when I had pitched the idea of the brunch burn, their only hesitation was that they wanted to make sure that it went off as well as it could. So they suggested that I partner with somebody who's already established in the industry to make sure that it was well attended, to make sure that everything went off without a hitch. So I collaborated with my buddy Jordan Jeske, and together we did this brunch burn. I got one of my friends is a photographer. He came down and photographed the whole thing. Then we could promo for afterward. I could use that for my website. I used that as part of like my experience for the next job that I applied to, where I knew one of the trainers that worked there, and he stuck his neck out for me to put in a good word. I had like a lot of mutual friends started to like bet on me too, which meant the world. So that secured me with sort of like a paid internship setup while I was doing working at Central on weekends, like almost every weekend, from like 8 p.m. to like 2 in the morning. There were some shifts that we were still working away.
Wait, you weren't expecting to get ahead on a 9 to 5 and that's it job?
I had to do whatever.
You didn't think you'd be home at 5:15 eating dinner and drinking a beer? That wasn't your goal that's not how you were going to become successful?
No.
Not at all. Exactly. We had to plan a Sunday. It was the only time that you've had in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I got 90 minutes out of them in 2 weeks later.
Well, it's funny. Like I maintain a pretty like high pace of workload.
That you do. Yeah.
And it's with good reason. I kind of look at the future version of myself and like how I can set that person up for success. And
you don't even know him yet. He's going to be so thankful that you did, because it's not easy to put in 16, 18-hour days when you get up around my age. You don't think, I still act immature, but man, a 16-hour day, it's not like when we were 25. So I'll tell you right now, you at my age, you're going to be appreciating the hell out of the hustle you're putting in right now.
Yep. So I locked in a job at my first private gym. I was working with people that I looked up to, getting some mentorship on the training floor, which was awesome, getting like linked up with people internationally that I needed to learn from to get better. Because as like a new trainer, I was like super green. Like I wasn't someone that was necessarily like a meathead throughout high school. Like I was athletic and I worked out, but I wasn't like training with friends in the gym. I'd go up to the gym, I might go on the bike, use a few machines and leave kind of thing. I have to say, my high school teachers gave me special access to the weight room because I asked for it. And so before classes would start, they'd let me go up to the gym to practice for things like track and field, to kind of get out of my head, which is something that I forget.
Back when teachers really cared about progressing their students. Like now, and I'm not saying there isn't good teachers now, but the liability of going above and beyond what you're allowed to do to better your students, we're crucifying the teachers. Because let's say you dropped a weight on your foot and broke your foot. Your parents would sue the school when really the teachers just wanted to give you all the tools that you wanted to get ahead.
Yeah.
So shout out to the teachers that did that kind of stuff. I love hearing those stories, because your teachers aren't your enemy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm a kid of teachers. Like both my parents are retired teachers. My sister-in-law is a teacher, and the teachers were the heroes of the story from my high school journey. I don't reflect on high school and think, oh man, those were the days. I'm like, thank God I'm out of there.
Same. I don't go back and say like, oh man, that was the best time of my life.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to get out into the real world. When you love conquering, what are you going to conquer at school?
Yep.
Acing a test? Like, 100% again, big deal. Or 60%. I mean, you can't even fail now. But back then, what was conquering school? going out and throwing a football at recess? Hell no. I wanted the world. I wanted it now. The best day of my life, say before 19, was graduating early and then doing the world how I wanted to. It was completely wrong, but at least I wasn't in the education system being told you have to be here at 7:30 in the morning. You have to study this piece of knowledge that you're never going to use again. I hated that. I like the real world.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'll work, not because I'm lazy, but I'll work when I want to work, as long as I want to work, and as hard as I want to work. And you can't put a grade on that, because the only person that answers to me is me. So I don't need a $50K a year job. I don't need a $100K a year job. I don't care what your books tell me they can get me. I'm going to get more. So I was like you. I don't reminisce about high school. I don't remember what I did in high school other than skip a bunch of classes and throw some footballs. Maybe hit on a few girls. I got all rejected. It didn't matter. You want to know why? I had no value back then. Listen to that shit. Build something out of yourself, guys.
Totally.
So, complete different tangent, but I completely agree. High school, junior high, those weren't the best years of our lives. If you're planning on succeeding, that was the time that slowed you down. You know, you got time when you're retired to socialize, and you'll socialize with more quality people when you retire, because those are the people you actually want to be around.
One thing that you reminded me of in that tangent was I actually got my first taste of entrepreneurship as like a 16-year-old.
Nice.
So I was super nerdy. I spent a lot of time on the computer learning web design,
Nerd.
practicing video editing and stuff like that.
Did you start the GameStop hype? Was that you?
No, it wasn't me.
Not you on Reddit?
Not
Okay,
me.
I wanted to say thank you.
It would be funny
very
if it
profitable.
was.
Yeah.
But I actually, because I basically did all the modules that were available within the computer classes, and I got a few like small scholarships there, then I started to broaden out, and I got some work experience hours for editing and updating one of the local district athletic association websites, like updating stats and stuff. Got contracted to design the website for one of my teachers who also had like a taekwondo studio. And then I had a few like dental clinics that had me make videos for them. I helped my mom with like learning material for her school, like for the curriculum. So I had a lot of experience in just like being able to take feedback from an early age. But at that point, I wasn't in the mindset that I thought that could be viable. Like if I could build on the way I do today. But it was just cool to see those common trends. Like if you're seeing someone that's young, or if you're a young person and you're feeling entrepreneurial, like there's a chance that that'll be a trend that continues for the rest of your life.
Well, that sounds like by mid-teens you were already doing more than just an 8-hour day.
I always found ways to stay busy, no matter what busy looked like, whether it be volunteering for the community or helping out around the house or doing like these little side hustles that allowed me to go to the computer store and upgrade my computer, like to pour back into like the stuff. And but nonetheless, like how I've been able to leverage that today is incredible. So
you didn't even know it at the time. It was just stuff you were going through.
Yeah.
Instead of going out and getting in trouble, smashing bottles in a bus stop.
Well, like I
drunk.
didn't party at all. I didn't
Good
didn't
man.
drink before the age of 18. Didn't go to my own grad party, and I wouldn't change it at all. Like I liked the path that I took. It was definitely the path less traveled, but I'd do it again if you put me in a time machine. And
I gotta point out that one. That's the question that everybody asks. They think it's such a profound question because it sounds intelligent to them. What would you go back and change if you could change anything? I look at them like, you like my life more than I do. Why would I change any variable to get here? Because yeah, maybe I could be more successful, but I could also be less. You don't know if a change, even if you didn't like a specific point, that changed the way you thought. You might not be where you are. So if you like where you are, don't ever think I could have made it better going backwards. Don't ever, none of that shit. I wouldn't change any of it. All the pain, the suffering, the training, the disappointments. Because you know what? A lot of disappointments were people in my life. And I wouldn't go back and miss the moment where they showed me exactly who they were earlier in life. You don't regret losing people because you don't lose good people. So yeah, I like that. Yeah, you have no regrets. You don't want to go back and party more, hang out with more girls, or go get drunk with your guy friends and get a DUI, or worse yet, do something really bad that you have to live with for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
No regrets. I love the fact that I wasn't drunk or partying in my teens.
the next piece of this is just kind of reminds me of how you talked about how like you can meet people and they can kind of teach you lessons and stuff. So the first gym that I was at, like the person who like put in a good word for me and I was working with him, like he's always had my back. I'm still friends with him today. But like
Good people don't leave.
Oh, absolutely. You just kind of like keep yourself to a high standard and the high standard people will stay with you. So
You never disappoint them, really. That you have to disappoint yourself and then feel embarrassed around them. That's what breaks the connection. Your friends, they don't judge you, but they're going to elevate you.
yeah,
And if you don't like a friend who tries to elevate you, that's your problem, not theirs.
yeah,
Because they're not judging you. They just know you can do better.
absolutely. So as I was working at this first private gym location, 8 months in, so basically I had done the paid internship, and essentially the setup of that was I had to kind of like earn the role. So because I was so new, they're going to give me a shot to kind of like learn, shadow, practice, but it wasn't guaranteed. Where another person might have chosen to, like another person could go in and apply and they'd get the job because they had experience. I had to go in and I had to kind of like prove that I wasn't a total idiot, that I was willing to learn.
Yeah.
And so I was there for like, basically I would just get there at the start of the day and stay till the end. As long as I had nothing else in my schedule that I needed to be to like pay my bills, that's what I would do. And so I'd get paid for a few hours.
You invested your time.
Yeah.
You see how he didn't just go out, go drinking, go spend money, go hang out with his friends? Entrepreneurism, if you were to define it, it is front-loading your investment with time
Yep.
for a future gain. You don't get immediate results in entrepreneurialism. Very few times do you get paid out for the first hours that you do. You're usually thousands of hours in, but then all of a sudden you get compensated greatly on the back end. And that's what a lot of people can't reconcile in their minds. They're like, but I've put in 5 hours. I have nothing to show for it. Because you don't have faith that it comes later. So I love the fact that you're like, shit, I don't care. I'll stay 5 more hours. All I'm doing is investing in my future.
The one thing that stood out for me is I knew that I had more on the line than anybody else applying for that same job. Everybody else like maybe lived with their parents, or they didn't have as many bills, or they hadn't like halted the same like level of income. And so I knew that I had to follow through with it, whatever it took. So there was times to supplement my income. I did things like brand ambassador work. So I built like a milk crate thing for a photo shoot out at like the world's longest hockey game. I did.
Oh, so you'll know Todd then, because he's out there all the time.
Well, I never got to actually meet anybody that was
okay.
working the thing. I was just kind of like, I was logistics.
Oh, okay.
And it was just the amount of different gigs that I've done just to make things work. Like one gig that I took, I had to drive to Lloydminster to stand in front of a superstore and hand out gas coupons. And they paid for a rental car.
You know how to live. Ooh. That is exciting.
Well, it's just like, it's not glamorous. When you bet on yourself, that doesn't mean that everything's going to be like paved for you.
No, it ain't the Stanley Cup Finals every day. Sorry, you got to be in training camp for a long time.
Yeah. And amidst all this stuff and basically sacrificing every weekend for like a full year, because I don't think I booked off any weekends. I just worked as many as I could. And if my hours shortened, I just worked harder here to try and like gain the respect to get more hours. And there came a time when like the owners of the gym I was at, they're like, yeah, by October, you're going to be so busy. You're going to be full time here. And then midway through September, I was thinking, I'm going to start a podcast. That's when I started the Lifestyle Chase. So
What year was that?
2018.
Oh, wow. You've had that for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the great thing is people can go back through my podcast to hear my journey.
Oh, the evolution of Chris Liddle.
You can hear my voice evolve through it. Just confidence, the ways I talk, what I talk about, who I talk to, just how it's grown and just becoming like a very wide network of people. I've had Vance on the show.
Well, I'm gonna bug him one day. I think he maybe we're more, what's the word, aggressive in our approach. So he's kind of, I don't want to say timid, but Vance is a super cool guy, but he's very laid back. He loves to be part of everything, but he you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
He stays very low key, but we'll have him on one time. We're gonna grill the shit out.
But it was just at that exact time, and they're telling me I'm going to be busy in October. In September, they told me that they're going to be closing the gym in like 3 weeks.
What?
And so they went on a different path. We're not connected anymore. But I'm connected with like the colleagues that I worked with, like the other trainers and stuff. They helped ensure that I was successful in the years that passed. My friend Dean Guido, he's the reason I do jiu-jitsu today, because he's just kind of like pushed me to do things outside of my comfort zone that are with the interest of me getting better and having a better quality of life.
Oh, jiu-jitsu will humble anybody. Wow. I don't care what you think you are in the fitness world. You get in there with even a mid-ranked belt, you're going to get twisted into a pretzel.
Absolutely.
That's the first 4 or 5 months of any of it. I don't care how hard you train. I don't care if you can lift weights, run a marathon. You get in there with an 80-year-old or an 8-year-old that knows what they're doing, you're going to be a pretzel in a lot of pain. So if you want to get better, you have to experience pain. You have to grow from each experience and learn how to be humble, because you will be humbled. Doesn't matter who you walk in there as. You're walking out a much different, much more sore person. Mm-hmm. So I like that you got into jiu-jitsu. That was probably the most difficult aspect of my training back when I was fighting, was jiu-jitsu, because I hit like a truck. My endurance was actually really good. But that means nothing when someone's using your body against you.
Yeah.
That is some humbling shit, man.
Well, it's been so good for my mindset. And again, it's put me in rooms with people that I really relate to, just very hard-working, very focused people. And just that mindset of just this past Tuesday, I've only been able to go train once because somebody flipped me. I landed on my side and cracked or bruised my ribcage. And so it hurts to sneeze. And so until it doesn't, I can't go back. And so I just stay the course. But the weird thing is I look forward to going back.
Oh, yeah.
Despite the fact it just beats the shit out of you, you still want to go back because it's just you can see the bigger picture and you're willing to kind of take your lumps to get to your goal. And you know what processes work for you to be successful and you know which ones don't. If I was to go out drinking every night, that would not work for me to be successful.
No.
If I'm able to find things that kind of get all the extra voices out of my head and help me focus on the target and help me stay clear, that's going to work to get me to my goal.
And I got to point this out. So another person who does take training very seriously and trains people. Do you remember when we had Sean on from SR Training? What did we say? Pain and discomfort is like the rite of passage to growth. If it doesn't hurt, you didn't do it well enough. Not broken bones and stuff that's bad for you, but any good trainer, so that's how you can tell that Chris knows his shit. He's pointing out that I want to get back at it because, again, if you got thrown, you're going to avoid getting thrown that same way, aren't you? So you're going to look for a little bit of defense. You're going to look for a better stance, better posture, maybe even pick up the weights and figure out how do I make my core a little stronger so I don't get tossed so easily.
Yep.
And all the while he's doing all that, he's becoming the best version of himself. And it doesn't necessarily have to be as a fighter, but when you train your brain to know that I have to change every time I hit a roadblock, because what everybody else does, I'm giving up. But if your brain automatically goes to, well, how do I avoid this obstacle next time? How do I avoid pain? Well, you're going to train harder, which also means the training harder also hurts. But it doesn't hurt next time you don't get thrown.
Yep.
So I love that. I love how all successful people have the same mindsets. They're not the same people at all. They did not have the same journey getting where they're going. But none of them shied away from whatever the next challenge was or pain. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, getting my ass thrown, especially in judo, sucked. Oh, man, because... yeah, let's just be honest. I weigh a little more than most people, which means that in whatever weight class I was in, I was always fighting people much taller. I'm only 5'9", but I've been as heavy as 230 and fought as low as 170. They're always taller. So you're always going to get hit. You're always going to get thrown by someone who's got a better body structure in that particular fighting genre. So.
Well, just recently I participated in my first tournament. I got submitted within a couple minutes. The guy was built very similarly to me, and I was betting on going against somebody taller, but I didn't get what I wanted, and I learned a lesson. But I had teammates on the sidelines, and they were giving me feedback and talking to me afterwards. And the biggest takeaway was you can lose, but you don't don't lose the same weight twice. So it's like
There you go.
every loss
There
is going
you
to
go.
teach you a lesson that you're going to layer on to be the better version of you the next time. And so if somebody wants to actually like stand out, you got to have a capacity to get your ass kicked. You got to be able to fail, but not take a failure as a reason to quit, but take a failure as a reason to keep going.
Yeah, who beats all their opponents? A great person can't be great and know how to defend it against everyone unless they've fought everyone else. This is why I love it. People think that the fight game is just barbaric. They have no idea. Like, yeah, sure, you see the 1 to 25 minutes of a championship fight if you're watching some type of MMA. That is 1% of what that person has gone through to stand in that ring. Mm-hmm. The 4 to 7 hours a day of training, and you never. Let's say you're fighting at 170. You don't compete against people in your gym that are 170. You go up to welterweight. You go up to light heavyweight. You even fight the heavyweights because you want someone better than you. You want someone who has a weight advantage. You want to know how to manipulate that weight. You don't go fight people weaker than you. How are you ever going to win? And that translates to everything in life. If you're always taking on the toughest competition, life becomes easy because you expect nothing to come to you easy. I love that.
Totally.
You get more ass whoopings in training than you ever do in the ring.
Yep. So as we go along the saga of my journey, now we're at October 2018. The gym closed. I had the option to apply at a bunch of other gyms as an employee or go out on my own. From my experiences first getting into the industry, I realized that based on like either my resume or who I knew or which education I had, a lot of places would look at it and be like, no, not for us. Or maybe it would be, we're going to pay you this amount, but it wouldn't actually be enough to pay my bills, so I wouldn't be any further ahead. My time would be tied up, but my bills wouldn't be paid. So I made the choice to go out on my own as a contractor. The gym that I actually connected with was somebody that I knew back from my Sport Check days. So when I used to work at Sport Check, I was a department manager first at Wetaskiwin, then at City Center. And I connected with people from Londonderry and Sherwood Park. And the Londonderry department manager had actually just opened up a gym where people could contract out of there. So I connected with him, and I took the other 2 trainers that were out of work with me, and the 3 of us started contracting there. I got one of my friends to help with some photography. We branded up the website. We did everything. And I took as many clients with me as I could, which like all the clients were mine for the most part. I think some got sold by the gym owner to neighboring gyms, which wasn't the greatest because then it kind of like impedes your progress. But I went from a West End gym to an East End gym, started working for myself as like a contractor, renting the space. In order to pay the rent, I'd have to like pick up like loonies and quarters and stuff off the floor. And like if somebody was like, yeah, I don't want this changed. If one of the bartenders finished at the end of the night at Central and they didn't want change, I'd take that, roll up the quarters, roll up the loonies, roll up the toonies. Because I was going to go to the bank to exchange that for cash to pay that to the gym owner so that I could have a viable business, even if the amount of sessions that I did wasn't enough. Just had to do whatever it took. As that time went on, this was the start of just kind of taking on progressively more risk. Like sometimes I wouldn't make enough money to pay my bills. And so I'd be paying the bill off like credit card balance or line of credit balance. And it was like a risk that I didn't like and I wasn't comfortable with it, and it added to the stress. I contracted at that space from October 2018 to February 2019, and then made the move to Evolve, where I'm at now. The way that I connected with him is I had done some stuff with Lululemon, just whether it be events or collaborations and stuff, and he happened to be at a Lululemon event.
Side hustling your side hustles. I love it.
Yeah. He connected with me and convinced me to join. I had some colleagues and friends that were at Evolve, so it just kind of made sense. But that also meant that I was asking my clients to move again like 4 months later.
Yeah.
So every client that I worked with, I surveyed them. I was like, this is the facility, this is what's there, this is how much the commute will be, how much it changes for you. Most of them, it was a shorter commute. I was like, I'm going to give you all a grandfathered rate, so I'm going to take off $15 per hour off all of your rates. I actually have one client to this day that is still honored on that rate because he's an OG and he helped me get to where I am. So I'm going to reward that until one day he stops.
Absolutely.
But that's what I had to do. I was still hustling. I ended up, I stopped with Essential during that time just because, like, basically what I would have to do is I'd work till like 3 in the morning and then I'd wake up for like a 6 a.m. training session or whatever. If somebody wanted to train at a time, I train at a time. And so just dark bags under my eyes, having a hard time with the work-life balance, and I eventually just had to make a choice. And it's just like, it's hard to work that amount of hours and get no sleep and no personal life, so I had to bet on myself again.
So let me interrupt real quick here. I love the fact that you were willing to put up extra value to your clients, knowing that you were technically, inconveniencing them, and you gave them a discount. Even though that hurts you, if they ever had that thought in their mind about, oh, maybe this isn't as convenient to follow you, you squish that right away. Because client retention, getting clients is sometimes easy. Like that's not difficult to say the right thing to get them to come in. But retaining clients, if you're in any kind of business, you know that client retention, that guaranteed income, revenue, doesn't matter which side of it you're on, whether you're getting paid or you're an entrepreneur, that steady flow of income is the most important. So I love the fact that you pointed out, and a lot of people can learn from that. Even though it hurts your pocketbook up front, incentivize your clients to stay with you, because there's a lot of other people out there probably doing what you're doing. And it tells them right off the bat that you appreciate them as well, because they are your clients and that's your livelihood. So sorry, go back to what you're saying there.
No worries. One of the things that I thought about was there's actually another collaboration that I did with Central Social Hall.
Of course there is.
Yeah. So this one was actually at their St. Albert location. I came up with this idea that I wanted to help people crush their goals. So it was more of like a motivational workshop type thing. And I knew that I was still this was probably in the summer of 2018 before I knew that I was going to be having to move on from that gym. So I actually connected because I had been so connected with people through the Yeg Fitness experience, which was from 2017 to 2018 roughly. I had a lot of connections with businesses, stuff like that. And I set out to do this goal crushing event. So I partnered with 12 different businesses in the Edmonton area, plus a few that were online based in Canada. Mm-hmm. And their role in it was to contribute to the swag bag. So we had hats, we had different cool shirts and shaker bottles, and we had a digital copy of an audiobook, quite a variety of things, probably valued at $80 per swag bag if you monetized everything. Mm-hmm. And then I would sell tickets to the event, but the ticket was just the cost of the brunch. And gotcha. So we had it at Central St. Albert. Vance was there for it to kind of help facilitate. He carried the brunches out to all the attendees and everything. And I just basically helped people to formulate how they would get from their point A to their point B in their own way, helping them develop their own train of thought, helping them develop their own boundaries, their own path, realistic goals, etc. And I had fellow trainers that showed up. I had a couple clients show up, some people that knew me through the gym. And it was a really cool event. And it was just I had never seen anybody do an event like that. And Central was yeah, go for it. So it was really cool to have that kind of that belief in me, because you can't do that at every business. And that's why when we meet up, I like to make it at Central. If you ask me, I'm Central.
Of course. They're so, and yes, it is. I'll go right back to what you said. Not a lot of businesses will do that because it's liability. Yeah. Liability. If someone slips and falls, if someone says something they shouldn't that represents a community that doesn't represent another community or can be misconstrued by this community, it's nothing but liability to help you throw an event. So think about that whenever you ask businesses to do something with you or for you. You're nothing but liability to them. They're taking on a lot of risk. You know that you're trying to do something better, but the reality is lawyers get involved when things don't go right. You know how many lawyers there are, so that tells you how many things don't go as planned. So that's, yeah, but every time we've done something, Jesse or Vance are right there the moment we say something like, how do we get involved? What do we do? You need some gift certificates? You need some space to, we're here again. Like we're during business hours. You can hear it's a little louder. Normally we were down under the all I ever wanted sign down there. They're like, don't worry about it. Well, the whole back section here is closed off just for you to do what you do because we like how you deliver your message. This is who they are. Always surround yourself with good people, because not only are they going to do you favors, not that you should do something expecting a favor, but they're more than happy to. And it shows you the quality of who they are. They always want you to do better, and they ask for nothing in return. They're like, well, we're going to be known for doing the good things in the community. That's what they get out of it. It may never, materialize for them. But if they don't take their chances, like you take your chances, I took my chances, you can't be greater than average by doing average things.
Yep.
So that I love hearing this. I love hearing that.
So then back in the time capsule we go, where in February 2019, I'd started off at Evolve, and one of my friends had suggested that I go to a fitness summit in Kansas City. And as I had talked about before, I wasn't in the best financial position. But February around that time is close to Christmas, close to my birthday, close to things where family members are going to give me cash and stuff. So I just designated any gifts to be towards that trip. I basically went on that trip with enough in my bank account to buy McDonald's, but not much more. And so I got a 10 burger for $10 special and lived off that for the first day and a half of this summit and stuff. And then I shuffled some money around to pay for another dinner, and I was so broke. But I'm glad that I went on that trip because it connected me with some of my colleagues in the greater fitness industry. It was another risk that I took on myself that worked out. And we'll circle back to why that was meaningful as I kind of go along this saga here. So I get back, I had to live off rice, tuna, and beans for a while. There was one summer I got super lean, and part of it was because I was working out a lot, but part of it was because the only thing
couldn't
I could
afford to be fat anymore.
Yeah.
That's where I was years ago. I was like, damn, I'm looking good, but damn, I'm hungry.
I basically, my parents, they live on a farm, so they'd supply me some beef and stuff and some garden vegetables, and that's what I ate. And it was there's no choice, but it was great because it kind of got me into that more strict regime. It certainly didn't hurt business, although I don't care what a person looks like if they're able to present a viable solution to a person's lifestyle problems, then they're a good person in the industry.
Oh, absolutely. But if anybody ever wants any recipes for how to live broke, producer Mac makes a gourmet macaroni. Oh, man. He has nailed that shit right to a T.
I, too, have had some very excellent macaronis. But, so I was building up from there. I had made some cool connections. I'd started to work with some amazing clients, and I was starting to build some momentum. This is in 2019. Then, boom, 2020.
Pause.
So...
Bet you had big plans, didn't you? Well, you can throw that out the shitter.
The funny thing is, I made this motivational video, and I was like, 2020 is the year to set bigger goals, and it had Odessa in the background. It just sounded so good, and I look back, and I'm like, isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
Because there was a few clients that were basically, their work with me was life-changing because they were doing 4 sessions a week. They're always there, always motivated. They were talking about me at their workplace, stuff like that. The referrals were awesome. And then the gyms closed, the health risks changed. People had to change things about their structure of their work, structure of where they lived. And I lost 9 clients, 9 key clients.
Overnight.
Well, overnight or over the course of 2 months, however it looks, and it sucked. It really sucked. And it was during that time when things like the gesture that you guys did were game changers for me, because it's living by yourself, not knowing what to do, feeling like you might have to go back. And that's when I really had to lean in. During the summer of 2020, my parents had me come over there. I just kept my mind busy by working out on the farm. And so we would clear old trees from their forest, and we'd sell firewood. And my brother lives across the road from them. He's like turning 40 in a few weeks. And he has like a lawnmower, so he would lend me the lawnmower to go mow his neighbor's lawn for like a set rate, because that neighbor was contracting other people to mow his lawn because he didn't live on the property. I was doing every side hustle you could think of. My dad and I sold a tree to a gym owner in Beaumont. I was just like selling things through Instagram. Trees, firewood, doing lawn mowing, whatever I could. I did. Vance actually helped me out. They needed a trainer last minute for an event that they did west of Edmonton. So I slid in there and I did some group fitness out at kids camp. And then Vance was able to pay me for that. So that was a clutch moment. And just basically doing whatever I could. I was starting to build my online client base. I did a beta test of that in January 2020, where I worked with one of my friends who I actually met her when I was a camp counselor from age 16 to age 18 or so. Age 14 to age 18, actually, because I started earlier in that. They let me start when I was like the same age as some of the campers. But she was my first client, so I gave her like a beta rate. So she paid less than half of what my online clients pay today. And I'd have like these Zoom meetings with my friend. His name is Alex McBarty. He's in Michigan. And we met at that fitness conference that I was telling you about. And we would have Zoom meetings where we would compare ideas of where we're at in our journey. Not compete, but like try to help each other be better. And during the pandemic, his online business increased substantially and he needed to hire a coach. So then in 2021, I started doing some of the programming for some of his clients. During the Christmas season of 2020, I took on some work with Lululemon. I worked for them remotely, just another side hustle. It was full-time hours where I basically handle like chat, phone call, email lines. So everybody that was mad about their packages not showing up on time during a pandemic just before Christmas, I fielded every last one of those phone calls. It got to the point where I'd like start my day of work and be shaking like with like a panic attack, because you'd be on the line with somebody from like Texas and they'd scream at you.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do, but it was just like, that's how I survived. Other people had their different path, but that's how I had to do it. Then that position got ended early. Just they didn't have the need for people like they thought they would. So then I had to figure it out again in 2021. I looked at all the different options. It got to the point where I was applying for, because like with the gyms open, close, I just didn't have enough people to pay all the bills. So I was training people. I was training some people on Zoom, trained one of my clients in a park, because for a while that was your only option.
Yeah, outdoors.
And, but I had to find other ways to fill in the gaps. So I was applying to jobs. I also, in 2018, I'd started doing a little bit of work with one of my former neighbors who realized that I had a very active Instagram presence. So she has a business where she does content and handles accounts for Twitter. But over the years, she's expanded that to be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And she needed to hire somebody to work for her. So I started off writing blogs for her at the time that I was working at Central. And then as time went on, she had me start to handle some of the Instagram accounts. In 2021, I started to create graphics for her because it was a need that she had, and she previously would...
Did you know how to do any of this stuff?
I had an understanding because of my nerdiness, but I refined on that understanding in order to benefit more from it. So
she didn't have to look further to bring in someone else. You made sure you provided the value to stay employed.
I basically fill in the role, like, because I know what it's like to have something just taken from out of under your feet kind of thing. I know to be valuable. So I will spend, like, sometimes I'll be up late and I'll be looking at YouTube videos of how to edit better, how to create better graphics. I'll look at how other people do stuff. On my podcast, I've interviewed other like designers and videographers in addition to fitness, because I'm looking at how I can improve my other channels of income and stuff. So at that point, I'm applying for like 10 jobs a week, not hearing back from some of them, hearing that they went with another person for others. There was handfuls of jobs that I was highly qualified for, some overqualified for, but you take your lumps and you just keep trying. Every Sunday I would just go on LinkedIn, go on Indeed, look at this line, apply for each of them, put in like, customize the resume each time, and just, it was like having to feel defeated over and over and over, but stay positive because you're still a trainer and you're still someone else's beacon of hope. Over time, my family was actually getting kind of worried about me because like my mental health was kind of getting bad. Like it's just running out of juice in the tank. And my brother started to show me some warehouse jobs. Maybe I go back into warehouse, something simple, something to pay the bills. And I actually went for an interview at a place in the West End, and he was ready to offer me the job on the spot. It was going to be less than what I made previously in warehouse. The thing that kind of stuck with me was as soon as I saw they had a smoker pit, I was like, that's not me. I don't want anything to do with the smoker pit. And it's just, I just need everything to kind of align with my value system, like where it's just like I need to be at the best version, and like my siblings smoke and they can't quit. And so I just try and like distance myself from being in a position where I would start, just through boundaries and just environment and stuff. But
identifying these subtle hindrances to your life, like if you put yourself in a scenario where everybody's drinking every day, there's a good chance you might eventually just, it's just going to start with one. Oh, well, then it's every Friday. Oh, if I'm drinking, I might as well have a smoke, like you said, with everybody else. And 6 months later, you have a bunch of habits, a bunch of extra expenses, or you just avoid the whole scenario and don't pretend to yourself that you're never going to get tempted. Yeah. No, that's smart.
So walking away from that job offer, I sat in my car and I thought about like, oh God. And then it was like another instance where it's like, okay, I'm just going to push just the way I did before. I pushed to make it work to get my first few clients. I pushed to make it work working nights in an industry I never thought I'd be in. I never thought I'd work in a bar. And so I pushed to apply for a couple more places. I ended up working for Lululemon again. This time it was for their mirror launch. So they had that exercise mirror platform, and I worked for them for 5 months. Lots of lessons, lots of awesome friendships and stuff. But this time, because of all the different like seeds that I had planted along the way with income streams, I got to leave that role on my terms. So at that point, since I had started my podcast in 2018, I had like 4 years of experience in hosting a podcast and like hundreds of episodes, lots of interviews, lots of technical knowledge. And I actually got sort of like sought out by one of my colleagues in New York who has a podcast, who needed help with her business. So around the time that I moved on from that role at Lululemon in 2021, I think, or 2022 probably.
Early
Anyways,
2022.
Yeah. Around that time, I talked to my colleague that I work with the social media, and I was like, I need more work. What can we do to get me more work? And talked to my colleague from Michigan, and I was like, let's get some clients in here. What do we got to do? And I circled back to my friend that I had talked to from New York, and I was like, if you're ready to take me on, I'm ready to start working. And I just kind of like pushed the envelope a bit. I was like, okay, I'm ready. And it was just like, boom, within like a couple weeks of me resigning from the one role. And it was like full time. It was pretty decent hourly rate. So like that already put me in a better position financially, where the debt I had accumulated before, I was starting to chunk away at it, like $1,000 per month of just paying off debt.
Nice.
And then I flipped the switch and I got myself into an even better position where like I was worth more with the work that I was doing within the day. And it was just simply because like I knew what I needed, I knew what I was skilled at, and I started to like flaunt it or push it a little better. I started to invest in the equipment that I use for content creation. Bought $1,000 camera, bought $300 mics. One of my friends, the friend from like the gym that put in a good word for me, Dean Guido, sold me his old microphones and stuff. So I got like $1,000 worth of podcast equipment for $50.
Wow.
And I've helped him out in return, like tried to set him up with some deals with Lululemon. You can do your friends and family things. So it's like when people take care of you, you find ways to take care of them.
Absolutely.
And it just, that's such a pillar for me, because it's like, to have good connections and to have good friendships, you have to reciprocate the value that they bring to you. You have to bring it back to them. And so at that point, it was April 2022. I was working for a company in New York, and I was basically podcast producer, content director kind of thing, 15 hours a week, working for business in Edmonton for social media, filming stuff, editing stuff, creating copy, creating graphics, posting on Instagram, posting on LinkedIn, posting on Facebook. And this is for a plethora of businesses in the Edmonton area. So I know a lot of people who don't even know that I know them, because I'm like posting for businesses as almost like a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
And then my friend in Michigan and I, we started to take on more clients. We actually had the opportunity to like sponsor some people. I put out like an anonymous post on my Instagram, and I was like, ask me questions, and somebody was like, if I was to work with a trainer, I'd work with you. And I was like, whoever sent that message, can you let me know who it was? They did, and we were able to actually comp them for 12 weeks of online training. And then from there, they kept renewing. They've been working with me for 8 months. There's a time that they said that their job was stressful, and I actually got them an interview for a better job because I know so many people.
Hey, there you go.
So it's just
it's who you know.
The momentum that it's taken, because it was the place that I connected them with was a place that I do the social media for. So it's crazy what can happen if you get yourself in the right positions. And like the debt that I was talking about, I washed that away last year.
Nice.
It was substantial. It was like $15,000.
It's impressive.
It was wild. And it's not something I advertise very much, because it's like, it's something I'm self-conscious about. It's like, how could I have ever let it get to that? And what would...
But everybody can relate.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who hasn't held debt at some point in their life.
Yeah.
And sometimes your first experiences with credit, wow, this is easy. I can have everything that I want right now. So even if it's not out of necessity, we've all done it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's your first $500 credit card in college, just tap, 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 and gone. Now you got to pay it back. But when I was in college, we were making $6 an hour, so it took a while to pay off $500.
Yeah.
So $15K, that's reasonable. That's less than half of what the average Canadian is in debt outside of like mortgage or car.
Well, it was just like before that moment, like I didn't know if I'd be able to do it within the career that I have. I was like, am I ever going to make enough to actually have that much spare money? And so that's where it's just been such an incredible year. Like this past year, the year that we're in, because now I'm hitting my stride. Like now we're laughing, because like all of this work that I put in is starting to really pay off. Let
me check something. So we're basically almost at the 90-minute mark, and he's mentioned twice in the last 3 minutes that he's financially secure and things are looking better on the monetary side. Maybe no one's even listening at this point, but I hope you guys are, because this is the most important part. Did any of this sound easy? Did he get handed anything? Did any of this come from the government or by winning the lottery? No, that is all bullshit. This is every time a roadblock comes in the way, you either run through it or find a way to work around it or take a different road.
Yep.
None of this was, I guess I'm done. Because that would have sucked. It would have been easier just to go find that job, maybe take that warehousing job. You know you're eating next week. You know you're going to eat. Or at least it's the illusion of it, because that carpet can be pulled out as well. So yeah, we're finally at the part where entrepreneurialism sounds must be nice. How many times do we get that? Producer Mac was just telling me about another one that he had to deal with yesterday. Must be nice. Really? Try living 5 years of my life. Try living 5 months of my life, and you will never say must be nice ever again.
Yep. So to kind of give people a picture of what my life is like today, like the flow of my days, I'm not slowing down right now. Like foot is on
You're
the
in
gas.
your prime.
Yeah. And so like if we go to like Tuesday, I will be waking up at probably 5 in the morning to finish up.
I'll be on my second dream.
I'll be finishing up some of the show notes and production for a podcast in New York. We're actually changing my role with that, where I'm going to delegate it out a bit more and create sort of like a standard practice for another contractor to do that, so I can branch out and help that business generate more money by basically not having my time taken up by like the monotonous stuff, but more with like the vision stuff. And so through that, I've had to dive down the rabbit hole of AI and look at what tools are available to me to free up my time to help that business scale, because if they're winning, then I'm winning.
Yes.
From that point, I'll be doing like a morning in-person training session at 6:30. Sometimes I'll get in my own lift. Then I will come home, hop on a few strategy sessions with clients from all over the place. I have clients from Kansas, from Michigan, from where else? Florida. Quite a few in Edmonton, obviously, but they're from all over, so I get to learn all these different things and get used to like operating in the different time zones. Then I'll do some of the social media content, get that wrapped up by 11:30, so I can go to jiu-jitsu at Frontline in Sherwood Park, get that done by like 1:30 or 2, come back home. Oftentimes I'll have some more Zoom calls, be doing some video editing, maybe checking in with some clients over text, and I'm usually not done the day until like 9 p.m. But throughout that, I try to keep the work-life balance by structuring in that like untouchable time for jiu-jitsu as long as like my body can handle it. So that's 11:30 till like 1:30 each day of the weekday. And then I do some pickup basketball on Wednesday nights just to kind of like keep the brain juices flowing, stay around people, stay active, take care of my physical health. Like no matter what your financial goals, if you don't take care of your physical health and your mental health, your financial goals are going down the toilet.
Yeah, what's the point of being wealthy with a broken body?
Yeah. And like even just with regards to mental health, when I talked about like the tough time when like my brother suggested I apply for another warehouse job, he also said maybe I should talk to somebody, and I actually went and I talked to a counselor. And it was like one of those sliding scale organizations where they were able to support me in my tough time with a few sessions. And so after that, they've been one of the organizations that I support monetarily to help them to be sustainable. Because like when good people do good things in your community, it's not alone. So it's up to other good people to support those good people if we want those initiatives in our city. So
yeah, it's not someone else's job to make your city better. Whatever you expect someone else to do, you should be at least doing an equal amount yourself. It's not just your mayor's job to make sure your community's clean. Pick up that trash or support that nonprofit that is the ear for you to call when you're having those bad thoughts.
Yep.
Because it just takes not having someone to talk to, and we lose somebody. So especially if you're one of those people that's used that service, if you got a couple extra bucks one month, don't go drinking. Toss it their way, because that might be the difference. But what if they weren't there when you needed to make that call? It's very important. Community is built by the community, not by the politicians.
And I mean, it's kind of like what you've sort of alluded to in our past conversations about how like money isn't necessarily like a real sort of thing, like where it's
money isn't real. When you get out of working for it, the only reason money seems real is because you go to work for an hour and they hand you a $20 bill so your brain can understand what you work for. But when you're wealthy and you no longer trade time for money, money doesn't exist. You exist.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
What you do exists. How and who you give your time to exists. Because you will lose people around you the more that you start realizing your own value and what your time's worth. You don't give it to people who waste it.
Yep. I mean, even just with one of the biggest, most important things about the career path that I'm on now is despite the fact that I work these long hours, I can still carve out time for my family. Like there was the brunch event here that you guys had yesterday, and I had to miss out because I wanted to go and spend time with my uncle. He's like 92 years old. He was hosting lunch at his farmhouse with his daughter and his son-in-law and my parents and myself. And I was like, I'm not going to miss that for the world, because like his wife, my aunt, she passed away in 2021 just as I started like the role with Lululemon, and it was tough to experience. But it's the tough losses that have taught me how I want to designate my time. I'll stop what I'm doing to see my nieces play ringette, because they're only going to be the age that they are now once, kind of thing. And like, there's groups of people that I'll prioritize. Like when we have our like pizza nights at Nietzsche's, that's a priority for me. I'm like, I want to be there because I really like that. And it's just, we're not guaranteed forever.
No.
So we got to be doing stuff that like makes us feel good about life. And it might take some grit, and it might take some hard work, and you're probably going to have to do things that a lot of people aren't willing to do, like paying money to get your ass kicked. Like, who does that?
Or even just giving up what you think is your free time, where you go home and binge on a streaming service because you think that's what you need to justify that so hard 9 to 5 that you put in that isn't getting you ahead.
Yep.
When you go spend 3 hours a night on a streaming service instead of going to the gym, we're not judging you, but that's a choice you have to make, where you're giving your time. And like you said, you like to come out when we do our pizza nights or the brunch days and stuff like that. Sometimes it just feels good to get around people that aren't ashamed to talk about their wins. You know, like someone got a raise, someone made a good investment, someone started a business, someone has their best month ever in their business, someone just hit their 6-figure goal, someone just hit their 7-figure goal. None of these are better than any other one. But you know what? It's nice to be around a table that doesn't talk about gossip. They don't talk about someone who isn't there. They don't talk about shit that they can't afford that they're going to put on their credit card. Everybody around those tables hypes each other up. Not that bullshit fist bump, ass slap kind of thing. They set examples of success, and that's all you strive for. You don't think, oh my God, I need a new car because that's what everybody at my table talks about. You're like, man, now I want to have my best month. I want to give I thought I was giving my clients the best product that I could, but I've just found out from these other people sitting at my table, they took it a different route, and now they retain more clients, got better word of mouth. Now they're having their best month just because they approached the clients they already had differently. Mm-hmm. And everyone at that table is going to celebrate every one of your wins because they're not jealous. They want you to do better, because the better you are, the better attitude you bring back to the table, which might fuel them on a day when they're down. Because our tables don't sit there and perpetuate bullshit. We don't perpetuate anger. We don't perpetuate why always me. There's no victim mentality at our tables. You can come in, you can spout off what a shitty week you've had, but the rest of your table is responsible for bringing you up to the rest of the group. You will always be the average of the table you sit at. So if you sit at tables that talk bullshit, that's what you are. Ooh, that hurt to hear, didn't it? You want me to say it again, or did you get it enough the first time? But if you sit around success, if you're the most out of shape person at a table, you're not going to pick up those Twinkies and that chips and stuff like that. I'm not saying people with 6-packs are the only version of a good self, but I guarantee you, if you're sitting at a table of people who work out all the time, your clothes are going to feel tighter. You're going to be like, man, I could do a little bit better. You sit around a table, let's say you're a 5-figure person right now, you sit around a table of 6 and 7-figure people, you ain't going to be 5 figures for long. Not because they judged you, because you saw better. You understand better. People talk about better. Not they're better than you or you're better than someone else. They're the best, better version of themselves. They're better than they were yesterday, but they're not even as good as they will be in the future. I can go on this rant for the next half an hour of giving you examples of how everybody around us is winning. Not because we think we're better than you, because we want to be better than we were yesterday. You can hear all those cliches all you want, but the only thing that makes you a better person is when you can look in the mirror and tell yourself you're happy with who you are. You're better than you were yesterday. You're better than you were a year ago. You're better every second, not because you're always winning, because you don't accept defeat. Every time you lost that job, or you didn't lock that client, or something that just hurts you financially, big fucking deal. Next.
Yep.
Tomorrow's coming either way. You want to be pissed off tomorrow, or you want to be better tomorrow? That's who we hang around with. That's what all this shit is about. So if you're still listening at wherever we are now, 100 minutes of talking about how hard it is to get to win, It actually started on day one when you decided you didn't want to be average. Everything along the way was the win. Now is just the enjoyment. But most people want that at the beginning. They want the lottery ticket without buying the ticket. They want to be playing in the Stanley Cups without being there during train camp. And then they wonder why they don't have better than an average life. So is there anything you want to wrap up this with? Something you want to really get in there to drive home at the end of this?
I would say you kind of outlined how social media and just life in general makes people feel like they can get the win with minimal effort, or like this is the hack, this is the way to make it easy.
I hate that word, life hack.
It's just not going to work like that. Like, you have to be willing to get in the arena and get your ass kicked if you want to reach your goal. And the toughest moments of that journey are going to be when people that you really care about tell you that you probably shouldn't do it. And they may have a change of heart when you actually do it, but you are going to have to look past that. Like, I've had so many people say I should get a more realistic career, and then they see where I'm at today, and like, we can have that agreement that I made it, I did it, and it was because of my work ethic and sheer perseverance. Like, tons of times when my parents might have second guessed my decisions, and then I show them what I could do now, and they're not second guessing it any.
No, they wouldn't question it. Now they feel bad for ever questioning you.
I think,
or maybe they rechange their mind and be like, maybe I can do that too now.
a lot of it is just when you're able to show the one variable that sets you apart. And for me, it's like my mindset and my work ethic. Then people start to see that no matter what industry you're in, you can be successful. And like, I've had the experience to prove that in very different industries: retail, warehouse, like customer service, oil industry, training, working with kids, like all these different facets, all the different education things that I did. And so I would just say to people, just find ways to get your work capacity up and put your foot on the gas.
Yeah. All right. I hope you stuck around till the end. There's a lot of really good information here. It sounds great when it comes from someone other than, your host all the time. But, Chris, really appreciate you being here today. That was awesome. Another way for you to hear a completely different way of doing it than the average person. These aren't the only ways to do something, but absolutely, your mindset dictates success. There are no other variables. Trust me. What seem like variables, they're not variables when you actually get out and put your feet on the pavement and accept failure is only up here. It is not life unless you decide it is. So for Chris, producer Mac, also Chris, All I Ever Wanted podcast, we out.